Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to the operations panel at the Business Leadership Summit 2024, hosted by the Indian Institute of Management, Shillong. The overarching theme for this year's summit is Building a Future Ready India, Business Leadership and Strategic Autonomy in a Shifting Global Landscape. As we navigate a complex global landscape characterized by rapid technological advancements, geopolitical shifts, and economic transformations, it is imperative for businesses to adapt and build resilience. Today's discussion will focus on a critical aspect of this journey: driving a future-ready India, supply chain resilience, and operational agility in a disruptive global landscape. With supply chain increasingly vulnerable to global disruptions and operational agility emerging as a key differentiator, this conversation is both timely and essential. We are privileged to have with us an eminent panel of leaders from diverse industries, each bringing their unique perspectives and experiences to the table.
Now let me introduce our distinguished panels who would be sharing their insights today. We have with us Mr. Piyush Pandey, Global Vice President for Customer Satisfaction, Quality, Safety, Sustainability and Transformation at Schneider Electric. He brings over 25 years of expertise in business transformation, operations management, and digitization. An electrical engineer with a postgraduate degree in operations management, Mr. Pandey has enhanced his leadership skills through programs at INSEAD and IIM Bangalore. Renowned for advancing net zero initiatives, optimizing costs, and innovative supply chains, he is a strategic leader driving operational excellence and sustainable growth globally. We welcome you, sir, to IIM Shillong. Mr. Rajiv Dwivedi is the Executive Director of the Global Business Operations Department at LAM Research. He leads LAM India's operations in spares, supply chain, logistics, and engineering services. With over 26 years of expertise, including senior roles at Barco and Schlumberger, Mr. Dwivedi specializes in driving operational efficiency and delivering value to global customers. A gold medalist MBA in operations management, he is an expert in sales and operations planning, procurement, and SAP deployment, advocating innovation and excellence in business operations. Welcome, sir.
Next, we have Mr. Girish Krishnakumar. Girish, sir, is the Vice President and Head of Sourcing and Supply Chain at Barbecue Nation Hospitality Limited. He has over 16 years of experience across PwC, Ola, and Irwin Fashions. As an alumni of IIM Shillong PGP 11 batch, he has demonstrated expertise in optimizing sourcing operations and delivering exceptional customer experiences in a consumer-facing industry. His leadership continues to set benchmarks in agility and resilience within the dynamic F&B supply chain sector. So we welcome you today. Next, we have Mr. Prashant Kiran Rao. Kiran Rao, sir, is the Vice President, Integration Operations at Optum. He has over 24 years of experience transforming global business operations in the healthcare and shared services domain. An alumni of IIM Bengaluru, Mr. Rao integrates AI analytics and automation into large-scale healthcare projects, combining strategic expertise with innovation problem solving. A global speaker and mentor, he is passionate about fostering collaboration, mentoring startups, and advancing growth strategies in high-stakes environments. So we welcome you today.
To guide this session, we have with us Professor Dr. Rohit Joshi, sir, who will be moderating the discussion. Professor Dr. Rohit Joshi, sir, a distinguished faculty member in the Operations Management and Quantitative Techniques area here at IIM Shillong. Professor Joshi has over 17 years of experience in academic and industry experience. He completed his postgrad at UCLA and holds a PhD from IIT Delhi. With expertise in supply chain management, Six Sigma, lean thinking, and design thinking, Professor Joshi combines academic excellence with practical insights to deliver impactful teaching and research. With his expertise, he will steer today's discussion towards actionable insights. Sir, we invite you all to the panel discussion.
Very good evening to all of you, and warm welcome to this gathering here. And thank you very much for giving your time for this discussion. And I'm really privileged to share dais with these, diversified. You can see the experience they have, and people coming with a great experience. And today the experience that we are expecting them to share on from the operations as well as other learnings that they have already went through. So on behalf of the whole team here, thank you very much. Just to start, before starting our discussion, I just want to share or you make the audience aware about the whole thing. First, to introduce the audience first, right? We have MBA students here. So these are 2 years MBA course that we have here. And these are the first year students. Some of the second students also I can say, but second year students just finished the exams and they went for one community immersion program from today onwards, so they will not able to join. We have another group here. There's a PGPX executive. There's a 1-year program, and this program is especially for the working executive who have more than 5 to 7 years experience. We also have PhD students who have the interest in operations and inclined towards operation related PhD. So that's they are also here. So this is the group they have. We also have professors from operations. They are my colleagues here. So you are from operations and this circular supply chain. Then you are from industry 4.0. You are they all are the learning and the researchers in this area. More on supply chain operations and Six Sigma. These all things, a mix of professors we have. So a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for joining on the session here. Okay, well, to start the discussion, we can just I was thinking to set the pattern first, to set the drafts. As there are 3 or 4 themes that we thought of collectively to talk about, and we were thinking that one option is just we will talk about these and then we'll open for question and answer. But before having coming to here, we were having a quick discussion. We were thinking that why not to have in between discussions also, right? To make it a little more interactive. So what we'll do is we'll take a break of 15 minutes. We'll have discuss something and then we'll open that floor for discussion. So I request you all to come in here and ask things that you wish to. Okay. This is one, and then probably at last also we can spare 15 minutes to have very generic discussion, if you allow me to do that, sir. Okay, so to start the discussion, the thing is we know that with the advent of computer, telecommunication, social media, today's customer is too much aware of the choices. What they want is a high quality product at rock bottom prices. And this all has brought intense competition in the market, and the competition not between the companies, they say the competition between the supply chains they own. And when we say the competition between supply chain, effectively, if we go 2 notches down, competition is between that how good you are to see the disruptions that maybe there in the. So to start, the discussion, I'm just want to jump into direct question to you. Do you really think that the supply chain resilience is coming at the top of the story nowadays?
Yet,
yeah. You can also keep this ready.
So first, I'm feeling absolutely charged with such a brilliant minds and people full of energy and smiling faces. All those young, because we are used to seeing not so young faces around us. So it's really a privilege to be here and interact with you. Now coming to the question, and I can give the answer straight because this is something which I heard from the top of my management, which was a kind of a vision statement for us, not for next few months, but for next decade. This is about, and this is again not true for the industry which I belong to. Okay, so may I take a step back. I come from a company called Schneider Electric, which is more into electrification. And when we say electrification, that means all those surrounding things of automation and AI and all those technologies that those are behind that. And another addition, just for your awareness, that you are very well versed about Industry 4.0, which is led by Siemens and Germany in general behind the scene. And Schneider is something who is leading something called Electricity 4.0. Yeah. And then I will come to the detail in later on in the question that why these two things are relevant. Now coming to this question, what we are facing in this last couple of years, that with the boom, with the data, being the new gold, there is I think you are from management, so you have gone through the case studies that how the data is growing. So between 2010 to 2000, this year, if we take 2 as a reference, like 2 zettabyte was data which was required in 2010 global storage, right? Today we are at around 160 zettabyte, and then by 2026 it will be 200 zettabyte. So in 15 years time, there is a 200% or say 200 times growth in the data requirement. Why it is important for us is that then we are facing an issue of demand coming from the data centers, where we are the suppliers. So all those big companies like Cumberland for Google or Meta for Facebook or Amazon Web Services for Amazon, and all those data centers, they are just waiting for materials to arrive. And that brings to the question that when I said that our CEO, he said something that was that earlier business and supply chain, like these were two things where the business was at the front, supply chain was being followed. Now business and supply chain are the same, because company cannot grow at this point of time if you do not have a strong supply chain. So today supply chain is the biggest strategy. It's not for the namesake, and it's not for this company, it's all the companies who are touching data centers this way or that way. For all those companies, supply chain becomes the strategy. That means how can we create a resilient supply chain? How can we create capacities? How can we reduce, optimize our lead times? How can we create the offers which can serve the data centers? So just to, to set the context that these two things have integrated, and you will see very, very often in these kind of fields that these two things are very, very strongly interlinked.
Right. Rajiv, do you agree with it?
So Piyush talked about data centers, and I think, I don't know how many of you know, but Lam Research is a company that enables a lot of those things that goes there. So we are equipment manufacturing company for semiconductors. So we know that everything that we are talking about, data, AI, IoT, cloud, you talk about it, electric vehicle, everything requires a semiconductor in it. And we are the firm, we are the company that make equipments that make those semiconductors for you to then go and use in whatever form and gadgets you want to use it. And for us, Piyush, you talked about disruptions and how some of these global disruptions that happen, how does it impact your supply chain and how your supply chain need to be resilient to all these things happening. I think most of us, we have been in industry for more than 20 years, and we know that every time we tend to prepare, there is a risk plan, then you put a mitigation plan that how are you going to mitigate those risks. But then once in a century, you get into a situation that we all went in 2020 when we were all hit by COVID. And COVID actually, for a company like Lam, it came as a big boom. Because as you are aware that during the time, everyone started to work from home. The schools were running online classes. The colleges were running online lectures. There were a lot of demand for streaming equipments, networking equipments, gaming consoles. And all of those things require semiconductor. And during that period of 2 years, between 2020 and 2022, and I think most of you would have heard about it, that there was a huge shortage of chips during that period of time. And we, as a company, we help build equipments that builds chips, but we ourselves were short of chips to make those equipments. So we were in that circular situation where we wanted to serve our customer by giving them equipments quickly, but we could not because we were not getting the chips that we needed to deliver to our customer. But cutting this story short, I think the kind of boom that we saw in those 2 years, specifically in the semiconductor industry, that resulted in we hiring more than 75,000 people in our supply chain ecosystem, which means we had to add those many people in our organization, in our suppliers' organization, in our sub-tiers organization. Now imagine on one side, you are facing with a situation like COVID, where countries are in lockdown and people cannot work. And on the other side, you are required to add resources into your ecosystem. And I think that was a big learning for us as we came out of that pandemic, that until we do something which is, because now we know that even a risk like COVID can happen, so we will better prepare ourselves until something else unknown will hit us. But that was the time when it became so imperative that unless we build a resilient supply chain, unless we build a strategy which will mitigate these kind of risks, we are not going to survive the competition. Because if we are not doing it, our competition is still doing it. So for this industry, and for us to survive in this industry, we really need to build a resilient supply chain. And that's where I think, like Piyush mentioned, today every organization has a very clear strategy of building a resilient supply chain, building a good business continuity plan in their supply chain, building a supply chain that can take care of any such risks which are happening. And I think this makes it very interesting on one side, because it is testing capabilities of people who have been in this industry for a longer period of time. And some of the things that they have learned when they did their MBAs or when they studied in the college, today's situation is defying some of those things. I'll give you an example, Dr. Joshi. So when we study operations, when we study supply chain, we are always told it's always good to consolidate. Economies of scale will give you benefit. But today, if you are putting all eggs in one basket, if you are consolidating, if you are looking for economies of scale, that might not work for you. You really need to diversify your supply chain in the way that when needed, and if you get into a COVID-like situation, you still have alternates, you still have options where you can rely on and you can keep running. So
that's right, Rajiv. Thank you. So the thing is, yes, when we on one side we talk about JIT, another side we talk about inventory. So both are contrary to each other, right?
And you really need to trade off.
And I'll come back to you on this. But definitely, point we are talking about is, yes, when we talk about supply chain resilience, it is top of the agenda, right? And companies are planning for supply chain continuity and bouncing back from any situation that company may jump into. So for Prashant, I have a little tricky question for you. The thing is, how do you really improve this type of risks and resilience in your supply chain? This is one. And second thing is, how to prepare your people. What do you expect from your people when it comes to supply chain resilience? I'm talking about not only guys who are working for you, but up, down, up and down, top, down, the whole team of the supply chain.
First off, thank you so much for having us. I just want to spend about 30 seconds addressing the folks in here, right? I know you've been listening to the industry solvers for the last 2 days. It's a Saturday evening, and it's probably the end of the day. I think you probably have your energy levels absolutely low. And trust me, I was told saying that go to Shillong, play golf, and that dragged me here. So fortunately, unfortunately, I'm going to speak. You guys got to listen, right? So please bear with me. Before coming to the question, so like they said, the diversified cluster that we are sitting in here, right? So I belong to Optum, United Health Group. Have anybody heard about United Health Group? It's a Fortune 3 $600 billion company. We're the largest in the US. Optum is on the product technology analytics side of the business, and United Healthcare is on the payer and the provider side. I've seen both the worlds. I'm right now heading up the acquisitions and integrations portfolio altogether. Just want to kind of, I'll toggle between a lot of stuff, right? And you might have heard about when they introduced me, it's not working. It's working. Yeah. So when they introduced me, they talked about somebody who likes to be mentoring startups, right? I love being among you guys, right? So I'm a part of Optum Startup Studio, wherein we kind of curate health tech startups with IIMB, NSRCL, and T-Hub. So the energy that I get out of folks across is fabulous. That's a segue into leading into what Professor asked us the question, right? This is something that I just want to put this as a takeaway in your back pockets, but then kind of ponder over it over the next few weeks as you kind of go through the motions, right? And then understand the nuances of what this kind of, tends into. So basically, when we came from, a bit of a flashback, right? When we were growing up, we were always said that be a generalist. And that's why I'm just trying to address the question that you had. But these days, when I kind of look at mentoring a lot of startups, they're so passionate about the product or the service offering that comes through, right? Technology, AI, Gen AI, data science. People talk about machine learning algorithms like they shoot off the hip, right? But when you ask them a question of trying to say, okay, fabulous. You have a product A, which is fabulous. You bootstrapped it, you put in your own money, and you've come to a stage where you need to basically take it up to the next level. Fabulous. How do you want to position that product? What's the go-to-market strategy that you have? How's the pricing going to be? They don't have an answer, right? It's like having a Ferrari and don't have the fuel to drive it. How would that sound? Or you have a Ferrari, you have a racetrack, but you keep the Ferrari inside your garage and keep revving it. No point, right? So I think that's where we are in the cusp of the talent versus the landscape or the disruptive landscape that we talk about, right? So, for example, I will toggle between operational agility, operational excellence versus supply chain. Be it healthcare, be it retail, be it e-commerce, right? Many of you folks do understand. How many sales and marketing guys in here? Okay, see about roughly 15 of them, right? How many of you guys have heard omni-channel, multi-channel? Fabulous, right? Can anyone tell me what is the outcome of a multi-channel versus an omni-channel? What's it targeting?
one single environment or one single avenue which serves to all the needs of the customer that it might face, right from searching for the product to maybe post-purchase activities that he or she might incur.
Fabulous. You can be a consultant. don't be in marketing. Trust me, right? No, I'm on a flip side. Please have a seat. So, very simple. Multi-channel is customer engagement. Omni-channel is customer experience, right? So, when everybody is moving from brick and mortar, how many of you guys? I mean, I don't even want to ask this question, right? Everybody shops on Flipkarts and Amazons, right? Do you think there's a brick and mortar showroom across for Amazon somewhere? There are fulfillment centers, there's warehouses, and if you're Amazon Prime member, within 24 hours, you have your product in your house. Let me go one notch higher. I was mentoring a startup earlier, a jewelry startup, which I can't confide the name. Everybody clear about augmented reality, virtual reality? How many guys know mixed reality? It's the combination of both, right? The jewelry store, just like if you see a Lenskart or a jewelry store, the disruption is to basically bring in, forget wearing glasses, Lenskart. Let's talk, ladies in here. Ask them to choose a jewelry out of a laptop. They wouldn't, right? Ask your sisters and your moms. They will basically hate you as a taboo, right? Now, make that as a top line. Make that proposition as a clear outlier for your top line. How does that sound? Right? Now that disruption, how is that aided? If you don't have a fulfillment center or a back-end technology which basically aids that propagation in terms of bringing forth the top line business that's going to come through, the supply chain resiliency is where the heart lies, right? And now you can add in more recipes, right? And I see a splattering of North Indians and South Indians and West Indians across over here. And each one of us over here like our biryanis, right? A South Indian will always say that my biryani is the Andhra style biryani is the best, and a North Indian will say Lucknowi biryani is the greatest. But there are few smattering of spices which kind of is standardized. And that's predominantly what transpires in the way we aspire to see the supply chain works against with the technology as well, right? We can talk Lean Six Sigma, we can talk process engineering, we can talk, now these days we talk about process mining, task mining, as Celonis and UiPaths come into picture, right? But everybody wants to talk about AI, Gen AI, right? If you do not know the ground of trying to say, I just want to eat a goddamn biryani, I don't care what you're going to put it, right? Then the AIs and the Gen AIs is back pocket. You just need to understand, trying to say what drives the customer, what drives the revenue. And as we go forward, I'll touch upon a few very nuances of how it drives a business from a finance standpoint as well. So that's my take. Sorry, I took a bit more roundabout route, and I just want to entertain the guys because it's late in the day.
Right, thank you. The point is well clear, when it comes to supply chain risk and resiliency, that is something is important to take care of. It's basically the backbone. How fast you can come back is important. And now, coming to Girish, and I can see there's a sourcing supply chain. When it comes to sourcing supply chain resilience is something important. Now the ball is in somewhere else, and you have to manage that court also. So, what exactly do you do to manage supply chain resiliency, other risks? First to identify them and then to mitigate them.
Thank you, sir. I think I also have a slight advantage that I'm talking about food. Many of you might not have touched switches, but you might be, everybody knows food. So first few years we started with giving jargons. So now I'm at a stage where I de-jargonize things. So for me, when you talk about supply chain resilience, the entire objective of supply chain is how do I have the right product at the right time at the right price? Anything which is going to disrupt any of these three things, you need to be anticipate, have a mitigation plan, and that's how you have to do it. For example, he spoke about biryani. Thank you so much. So let's say how many of you like chicken biryani? Okay, perfect. So let's say you go to the outlet, you go to any of our restaurants, and then say you order a chicken biryani, you're really hungry. So if I say I don't have chicken biryani, will you be okay with it? No, right? You'll hate the brand for it. So now the entire objective of supply chain is to make sure you have enough so that you're never stocked out at any given point of time. So when you're talking about global disruptions, and as a supply chain and a sourcing team, you have to know the linkages. So the customer only sees the biryani. He only is going to comment on whether he or she liked it, whether it was spicy, whether it was non-spicy, but whether all the ingredients were available at any given point of time, right? Step back. So somewhere in around April month, the semiconductor industry was going through a huge thought. China, US said China, we're going to not stop taking food from there. Do you know how it can impact a food industry? Can anybody just venture a guess? So there is a supply chain disruption happening in electronics industry, semiconductor industry. Do you know how it's going to impact us, food industry? Okay. So we could not get ships to import fish from anywhere else, right? So because all the ships were blocked by China for doing their exports to US before the anti-dumping act comes into play. So now, as a supply chain and sourcing team, you no longer can say I am working with one vendor who's giving me the best price advantage somewhere else in the country, some other country where we'll buy from. So for us, the task is to start saying, can we develop vendors locally? Earlier, it used to be the quote unquote was import substitution from a cost standpoint. Now it's no longer import substitution. You need that and this, because you never know which is going to get disrupted first, right? And we are in a domain like food where there's a lot of regulatory changes which keep happening, right? So like three months back, or no, more than a year, it's been happening. But they said like suddenly the government said, oh, we can't use single-use plastics. Now then what happens to your delivery business? So what happens to your packaging business? So any kind of disruption, the only way for a supply chain team to look at is look at the lead indicators. So when I say lead indicators, something else is happening. So you have to be very aware of what's happening, and hence you design your operations. The agility of the processes come into picture. How good you are able to respond, how fast you're going to respond to any kind of a change or any kind of disruption will define whether the customer is going to like your chicken biryani or not, right? That's a customer experience part, but the back end for it is as complicated as any industry, right? So you have to start planning in that regard. So I think like a plan, we have a share of business management is something which you will end up doing from a sourcing standpoint. From a supply chain standpoint, I will say, boss, where are my hubs? So essentially we had some few months back, there was some khartal happening in north for grain, some Punjab region. So the entire Delhi market was cut off. So I was servicing my Delhi market from my Mumbai cold room. I was doing a supply from here. So now I needed to fulfill my Delhi hub from somewhere else. So these are the kind of disruptions you need to anticipate. If something is happening, you read it on day one. Before you say, Acha, now I'm going to act on it. I'm going to do some data crunching, act on it. By day 5, you're already lost the game. So this is going to be about trying to anticipate what is happening and try to hedge your risks. So I think from a right product, so always continuously look for alternative products, something which is always exciting to the customer. You can't go and say, I want a chicken biryani. No, I'm going to give you alternate meat. So we have to give what the customer wants, but for that you need to build the system in the back end.
That's good. Thank you, Girish. Now another sort of risk is that I ordered veg biryani and I saw a bone in there.
Yeah.
After the half of the bowl, I already have taken.
Yeah.
Now I saw a piece of bone there. Now how would you manage this risk?
That's the biggest risk actually. So I think that is operations. and I think half of you might think that, chalo, Excel mein I've prepared a model. So I've got R code given me something, and ChatGPT also told me something yesterday. Ho jayega. It's not going to happen. Operations is a lot about making sure every system, every person in the organization is ready to deliver the same consistent product.
That's right. And that's what is very important. I'm jokes apart. But another question, the follow-up question that I have in my mind is, it is easy to say that, we are supply chain resilient, we will revert back so fast. But if I ask you, that how can you prove that, yes, your supply chain is resilient? You have some score on the scale of 10. If I want to measure supply chain resiliency of a particular supply chain, can you suggest, especially in food industry, given the supply chain that you have, how to measure that?
So we do have some of these things put in place. In fact, all the QSRs have it today. So we also have it. So one is your availability. So a number of times any of your products have stocked out ever, right? And that goes back to your cost of inventory holding is another part. How much inventory you're holding. So I mean, I can fill up this entire room with food and then say, boss, aapko jab bhi lena hai le lo. But then that doesn't work that way, right? So you have to manage the cost of cost to serve of each of these components. And of course, from a price standpoint, we have to have indexes. So today, it's not just Nifty guys who are having indexes. So in Barbecue Nation, we have a food index, food price index. Essentially, this is my basket of items. How much is the price increase? And that's applicable across almost all industries, and they have their own matrices to look at it. So, but when you say resilience, so I think risk scores, RPN score, risk priority numbers will matter. So we'll connect back to your Six Sigma later.
Yeah, please.
So thanks for bringing RPN, because this.
Yeah.
So first thing, just as information, is Schneider, because we talked about resiliency and scoring. Last 2-3 years, Schneider is globally #1 company in supply chain by Gartner. So just as information, but that's not the thing. What I the thing is that I found that Girish oversimplified. So that's the job of MBAs, to simplify the things, and job of engineers is to complexify the things. So I thought that discussion is getting too simple. So let me little bit complexify. So couple of things here when it comes to the risk and when it comes to and especially the topic what Rajiv talked about. Semicon, because that reminded me about one of the risk mitigation strategy, that is partnership. And Schneider, because we are very, very heavy on semicons, because when whatever equipment, electronics we are manufacturing, we are too heavy. The disadvantage what we are having was auto volumes, because automobile company, they also need semicon. And their power to influence the vendors is much higher than companies like electrical, whether it is Honeywell, Siemens, Schneider, and all those companies. So this is where the thought came, and now I think it is very, very common across that from a vendor-customer relationship to go into a partnership kind of relationship. So that is one of the strategy what we followed. And not only we followed, I think everybody followed. And couple of other things on the risk mitigation is today, two things. One is disruption. When we talked about, everybody thinks that disruption was one phenomena which happened in COVID. But what we are facing is that every day there is one reason or the other. 2 weeks ago, there was a flooding in Italy. So climate, it is creating disruptions. That is only one example. 2 weeks ago, it was Italy. Couple of weeks ago, it was Dubai, where you cannot, it was all over in the news. Other is the compliance part, that compliance also, because more and more companies, they are getting more compliant. And in many cases, that is creating another wave of disruption. So compliance also. So climate or sustainability topics, these. And then last, which is very, very common to all of us, we are all know, is the geopolitical scenarios. I think that is happening every day. So disruption is not something which was a case or it is something which is happening day in and day out. And that's the reason the only way to survive is to be ready with the resilient supply chain. So just to add on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll try to complexify the next one.
Now I want to come to Prashant, and that when we are saying supply chain resiliency, and given that technology adoption is one of the key factors here, everyone is talking about intelligent supply chain. Do you think that technology, numbers, AI, these all things can really help in building a resilient supply chain now and in future for next 10 years, something like that?
Absolutely, and I would basically take a couple of steps back, right? So, how do I put this thing across? So, I think all four of us have been through the rigors of Six Sigma, right? So, how many of you guys know Six Sigma? Fabulous. How many of you guys are living and dying by statistics? Not really. I see you just one hand, and trust me, it's a
Dying, they have a lot of.
So they say this, right? So we were from the era, and again, I like to give some kind of a profound context before answering a question, right? We were from the era where G and Motorola guys were like our master black belts, right? So if we didn't go to them with data, they would throw laptops at us, right? Today, you can get a black belt certification in one week, right? Now, Six Sigma problems was always unknown, right? So why I'm giving this context is to the question that Professor put across, right? So before we jump into the Ferraris and the Ducatis of the world, we need to know how to ride a TVS moped and drive your granddad's Fiat car, right? Now that's where Six Sigma comes in. There's so many of our issues today, right? Every kid, every youngster is talking about machine learning. Everybody's talking about Naives-Bayes algorithms and K means nearest. And I asked them saying, have you looked at the repeatable task that you actually have from step number 1 to step number 25? No, sir, we haven't. Okay. So step number 1 to step number 25, step number 7 to step number 13 is repeatable. Means you wake up every day morning, you brush your teeth, you go to the toilet, you have your shower, you go to the office, right? That's repeatable. It's predictable, repeatable. Now, which one is easy to automate? That's step number 7 to step number 13, right? Now, how do you do it? If you go through Lean Six Sigma, value add, necessary non-value add, and non-value add. If you just understand that specifics, you don't really need to even go to machine learning, right? People just overcomplicate today, and today everything is API-based and app-based, trial versions which coming across. Everybody wants to be a data scientist, right? So why I gave that context is today's world is very clear in terms of looking through, but we have faced a lot of these sort of very disruption in the e-commerce world, in the healthcare industry. Healthcare is extremely disruptive. I was just reading a Forbes magazine, and I'll give you a bit of an insight. You know the distinction between a CTO and a CIO, right? CTO is a hardcore technologist. He's looking from inward to outward. A CIO is more outward to inward, right? But they're saying that come 2030, right, a CIO will be the CEO of an organization, right? Mainly because the kind of industries which is going to disrupt with data is predominantly healthcare, e-commerce, and retail. That's where the maximum amount of data is available. Why I'm saying all this to you guys is very simple to kind of broaden your horizon in your thinking today. Trying to state that be it supply chain resilience, be it operational agility, be it product strategy, whatever it may be. If nothing results in revenue, nothing results in free cash flow, how many finance guys in here? People understand by free cash flow, right? Revenue recognition, right? And I'm living by this word every single day on that, right? So I'll bring in something what Girish just talked about. Have you guys heard about operating cycles versus cash conversion cycles, right? That's predominantly what he touched upon, right? You can do cash conversion cycles to a rocket-based product or even dairy farming as well, right? Your DIO plus DSO minus DPO is what? And what's operating cycle? Minus the DPO, right? Now what's that? That's your supply chain, right? I talked about front-end customer facing when trying to say go-to-market strategy, omni-channel, multi-channel. Those were me being a sales guy. Now I'm actually being the operations guy, right? I'm trying to say that in inventory, if there is more DPO, which is day payables outstanding, you're making a loss. If your cash conversion cycles is over than 30 days, you're not converting cash. You're basically in revenue leakage situation. How's that happening? That's through having an efficient and agile supply chain. So supply chain, all these years when we were growing up, were always looked upon as saying something is a back-end process. But that's being pushed to the front end right now. So that's working in tandem with operational agility, which is driving the revenues. So that's why I just want to take the context and give you guys a distinction of trying to say, don't just basically get hooked on to operations and supply chain and agility and kind of stuff. I just toggle between 4 different landscapes right now to give you a perspective as to how this is much more important, especially in your era, when you're putting your footsteps and becoming into an industry which is going to be very disruptive. Yes, it's going to be disruptive. But like I always say, being the South Indian that I am, I've eaten in Michelin star restaurants, but I always crave for my mom's rice rasam, right? That to me is your Six Sigma, that to me is your basics. You do this right, everything else is going to be taken care of. So maybe out of the context or within the context, but I just want to kind of give that the entire profound inputs in terms of how the disruption is taking place and how we need to toggle between that.
Yeah, I'm coming to Rajiv, but before that, I have a small question for you. That you are a golfer, right? And you are tech enthusiast. You know all these AI, ML, and all. Have you ever used these techniques to improve your handicap? Yeah, golfing.
You really didn't want to ask that question because none of these guys are going to get their mics. I'm going to speak all night long, right? So, I mean, thank you for asking that question. And how many of you guys are closer to being golfers or like golf? That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5. Fabulous. That's, I think, sorry? Fantastic. 5 guys is enough of my random sampling to tell me saying that I can still speak, right? So golf, I have taken it about 2.5 years ago. I've been a cricketer, I've been a sports person all through it. I've represented Karnataka State. I was in the Karnataka Ranji probables, and due to politics, I couldn't go. I don't want to go to that sad story. I was into motorsports, I was into superbikes, I was in the racetrack. Saw 2 tragedies with my friends, so I had to quit that. Now golf came in, right? So why I gave this context is you'd be mind-boggled in terms of the data available in golf, right? There's something called as lean angles. There's something called as smash factors and everything. How many of you guys know Tiger Woods? Tiger Woods is known as the best ball striker in the golfing arena. Why would you say that, right? Today there's something called as a flight scope. There's something called as TrackMan, right? And we have those in all across. In Bangalore, we use it. If I have to improve my performance in golf, I just have to take a 1-hour session across over there. It'll tell exactly what's the flight and the trajectory of the ball based on what my smash factor is. The amount of data analytics is available in golf is mind-boggling. And one of my friend who's a tech integrator startup, I was giving him an idea, right, to build an app, right? Tomorrow morning, if you see me playing, I have a laser thing called as rangefinder. So it basically measures the yardages from where I stand in the tee box to the flag, right? Say, for example, if it's a 160-yard shot, I pick up my 8-iron because I know I'm going to hit a 160-yard with my 8-iron. But now I got to take into account what's the wind factor. If I'm playing early in the morning, the humidity is high, the ball's not going to fly so much. Now, the wind factor is from right to left. The pin location is different. I got to look at the slope rating. Now, if I have that in my rangefinder, what the slope rating is and what the wind factor is, how difficult is it to put an app and trying to say what my swing speed is? It's going to be a very customized app which is going to say, for you, for this particular situation, it's not your 8-iron, it's your 7-iron. Now, that's the omni-channel I was talking about because it is customized to me. It's experience to me. It's not multi-channel, right? So I don't want to go in detail about that. Thanks for asking the question, but the amount of data.
That is the difference between a golfer and an intelligent golfer.
Yeah.
And that is what is bringing me to the same question. And the question is to Rajiv, right? That we're seeing something. I stopped in between.
No.
You know. So the point is, when we talk about AIs helping us convert SE into intelligent supply chain, and eventually what is happening is people are blindly going for these type of technology. And sometimes the business models are not that mature enough where these IT tools are really helping, right? And most of the time when we talk to people, they say that, tools are of course there, but end of the day, we are taking decision based on the guts, right? Gut plays a major role there. So the question that I want to ask you here, Rajivji, please help us understanding, are we really becoming the slave of technology? Or, we should be working first on our skills, then only technology should be used as an enabler.
So I tend to agree what Prashant just talked about his mother's rice and rasam. And I think I completely agree to this that we need problem solvers right now in the industry. And then there are ways to, once you know how the problem is going to get solved. So first of all, you need to identify the problem. I think, I don't want to generalize this, but I see that in our younger generation, we tend to jump on solutions faster than finding the problems. So to me, finding the problem sits at the top. Because if you know what the problem is, if you can define your problem correctly, I would say 60% of your job is done. Because if you know what the problem is, that will lead you to find the right root causes, and that should find you the right solutions. And I think having the mindset of problem solver is what we should all be looking for. To me, everything else that we do today, you talk about technology, AIs and like AI and ML, and people keep talking about these different tools. To me, they are only there to enable a good, like once you know what the solutions are, they will help you in getting to the solutions quickly. But to me, it is still premature in my eyes, and maybe I'm an old school, that technology will help you to drive everything. I think you still need a lot of basic understanding of problem solving, and then getting to tools like AI or ML to enable finding or enable to bring speed to your solution is definitely something we should look for. Now, of course, where all this technology helps us, we as a human brain cannot look to the enormous amount of data that exists today. So for that, you need high computing, high processing power. And that's what all these new age tools are bringing to you. But to me, once your basic understanding is there, it is far more easy for you to use the tools. I'll give you an example. So I remember I was in one of the institute, and I would not like to take the names. And there was this question about, and we were talking about inventories, and somebody brought up ABC classification in the inventory context. And then there was this, it was a kind of discussion followed by a quick assignment given to the students where they have to come back in 30 minutes and report. So a quick assignment given to the student was around ABC. Go and figure out what ABC analysis is. And there was this one person who used technology. He used ChatGPT or something. And he came back and talked about ABC in terms of activity-based costing. Now, if you don't have your own brains, if you don't know what ABC is, whatever technology is going to throw at you and you are going to just talk about it, it's not like, how long can you do that? How long will you survive? And I think that's where I would request all of you, and I see a lot of bright minds in the room, to use your brains, because it's brains like you who has developed AIs and MLs of the world. So use your brains, and then use AI or technology or whatever to bring speed to the solution. But ultimately, you need to find the right problems. You need to find the right root causes, because you are in the thick of the things. You are running a supply chain, or you are running the operation, so nobody better. Like they say, a machine operator is the first person who would know that there's something wrong in the machine. You don't need AI to come and tell you that machine is not going to work. So that would be my response.
I think, and I will jump it to audience here. Very quick questions if you have, please.
I just want to add, to what, and I do mentor, like I said, the startups and from IIMs as well. An honest question, and I need an honest answer. If given a situation to any one of you guys, right, what would you focus on? And trust me, this is something I've seen 99% of the time. Everybody jumps into the how, right? Everybody jumps into the how, right? And that's when your failure starts. Because you're going to go down the spiral of trying to say, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? This is something that we learned back in our, call us Jurassic, but still, when I tell my direct reports, I'm trying to say, have you defined the what? Followed by, have you defined the why? You've got 95% of your answers. And how becomes just 5%? So I would urge you guys to say that like he said, you guys are all going to be brilliant minds, are going to have a brilliant future and propel our country forward. Just focus on this. The what and the why, and then the how follows. The where and when, it's subsidiary, right? So that is where your goal lies. The what, the first is the what, and then the why. And that should basically propel a lot of things easier for you, be it rocket science or machine learning or whatnot. So I thought I just want to.
That's wonderful. And especially this 5 why technique is we always focus on, even before jumping on to what, because that helps us in defining the problem statement first. Then comes how, when, and all. Wonderful. Yeah, quick questions, please. Yeah, go ahead, please. Please, and the mic, please, so that the guys sitting backside also would listen to the question.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, sir, for the so much insights in the operations thing. So my question is, today we talk a lot about being agile, especially in the case of technology, and when we are bringing technology in the supply chain. So, but supply chain is something we know that is very structural thing, and in which we go by proper flow. We can't change our the manufacturing thing in the middle of the manufacturing is going on. So are the industries taking any step towards bringing agility in the supply chain process as we are including technology in our supply chain?
Should I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is a very good question. I think, and that's where I would bring in the use of technology. And I think that's where it becomes so very important that in today's world, where we live in, if we can have more connected supply chain, that will help us in bringing more agility. Like Piyush mentioned about having that partnership. So I need to be partner to my supplier so that he or she have enough trust in me to have access to their systems and their processes. And when we have interconnected systems and processes, everything that we would like to respond in a given situation will help us in bringing the agility. So I know it is difficult, and it has been difficult traditionally because we were having a customer vendor relationship, which is not based on trust, which is not based on partnership. And people were very reluctant to share their side of data, their side of processes, and their side of systems to their customers, because they feel that if they do so, they might get misused. But I think we are moving into a world which is more, hopefully, which is going to be more trustworthy and more credible, where we are more open in sharing our processes and systems and data. And if we can do that, of course, this is one way of bringing the agility in the supply chain.
Greetings, panelists. My name is Divyan Agarwal. Sir, I would like to ask that there are talks of maybe creating a all-seeing model in specifically supply chain and operations that could visualize the entire supply chain for an organization right from the procurement till delivery. However, as sir talked about that there are advantages in having alternatives to provide for unseen circumstances. So my question is how the use of current technologies could maybe provide to ultimately establish the dream of that all-seeing model, given or taken into scenario when to basically incorporate the alternatives as well.
Can I? Fabulous question. So, how many of you guys have heard digital twin? Yeah. So that's in the forefront right now, right? You combine that with your agile fail-fast methods, right? Waterfall is gone, right? Waterfall still is there, but still fail-fast. So I would go one step higher, right? So when you look at, and this is again, I kind of want to save it to the last, right? So you can have a seat. Process mining, right? Today there are API-based executable applications like majors like Celonis, UiPaths, Blue Prisms, right? Who kind of go on a SaaS model, right? You don't even have to buy the entire thing. You just have to pay per service, right? And that modulates your entire process mining altogether. It gives you the high level of trying to state that right from where the failure points are to your revenue recognition points. And digital twin creates that sort of a trial and error method in trying to say that, okay, you fail here now so that you don't fail. They have a very famous saying, right? You better, if you don't sweat right now, you won't bleed in the war, right? So that's exactly what the motto for digital twin is, right? So having combined those, then you build the top layer with your Gen AIs, right? And that's when you bring in a whole lot of things in terms of how do you basically bring in a much more predictable models, right? Today, people straight away get into a lot of trying to say, I want to predict, and straight away jump into algorithms. So in data, there's a governance strategy. There's a data cleanse, then there's a data quality, then there's data engineering. People straight away start saying, I'm a data engineer, right? Without even having to look at trying to say how much of data has been cleansed, how much of data has been qualified, right? That is where your gold lies. So I kind of giving you a long, wide, contexted, vision into your question. But yeah, I mean, you talked about the forefront of disruptive technologies in this particular landscape, and that's where exactly it is. And many of the organizations are, looking at, I mean, I was in Japan as part of my master's program 4 months ago. We listened to folks from Fujitsu. Fujitsu have created the failure modes through how an hospital fails in terms of the bed management, right? Through a digital twin, simulated digital twin, right? Now, simulation is something that which is pretty much available, which is going to take place. But again, I'll go back to what the basics that I talked about, trying to say that if you don't have a platform which has already been cleansed in terms of data, in terms of platform, none of these things are going to work, or none of these things are going to basically provide you that sort of an impetus in trying to get the best possible mileage out of the aspiration that you have in any strategy that you want to drive, right? So that's my perspective.
We'll last question, then we'll continue.
Hello, sir. My name is Akshat. I had a question for Girish, sir. Sir, so as you are the VP of sourcing, there is a lot of talk about ethical and sustainable sourcing, and especially what are the plans or measures, and how is the restaurant industry looking at ethical sourcing? Because I think primarily you are dealing with agricultural products only as the upstream, in the upstream supply chain. So how does the restaurant industry, and what measures does it take to ensure ethical and sustainable sourcing? And there was one more question for Piyush, sir. You were talking about something called Electricity 4.0. So if you can just tell us something more about that. Yeah.
So I think it's a very important question, and this is a discussion which is happening across all forums. I'll just give you start with one product, and then I'll tell you the entire strategy. So India is one of the biggest exporter of shrimps and prawns, right? So when it's an export product, essentially the compliances and requirements which are there in the industry come into play. So you need to have a complete traceability of the product which is coming in. So if you're using a final finished product, raw material which have to be imported, you need to understand which farm it came from, which processing plant had this. So they have their own compliances in terms of whether they were using best aquacultural practices. So a year back, so one of the vendors had visited, export vendor, US vendor had visited one of the plants. And when they were having this conversation, so it's a very highly skill intensive place, right? So you had a lot of staff, 200, 300 staff were working in one particular room. And then, this gentleman had asked one of the staff, where do you stay? Is your accommodation good? And then they realized that they went on to say that, oh, yeah, we have to be back by 8 p.m. After 8 p.m. we can't step out. Why? In India, we say that it's a factory. It's something which is far away from the city. So after 8 p.m. it might not be safe. Now, what this meant was that it was treated as a whistleblower policy. Now, what happened was, after that, you have a social audit associated with it. So no longer do shrimp players have to comply with your traceability, your farm maintenance. You have how it is sourced is not just on the product itself, but the working condition it became a factor in, right? So the food industry is now learning a lot from our export businesses. So today, if you look at any product which is being sourced, typically you will have moving more towards net zero is a dream right now in food industry. But of course, you are looking at how do I source shrimps which are from a BAP certified product or a processor? How do I find chickens which do not have antibiotics in them? How do I source vegetables which are not having a lot of chemicals in them? So the social aspect of things become very important, and that's something which you're consciously driving, right? So sustainable sourcing, more than ethical, I'll say sustainable sourcing becomes a very critical part to this, which, like for example, one of the things which we do is, now there is a cold chain. 60% of supply chain is cold chain, right? Now why that's important is, it actually allows a crop to be grown only in the season in which it will grow. rather, so which basically protects the soil, which basically I don't broccoli you'll get in all through the year, right? Today, whenever you go to a restaurant, you get broccoli all through the year, but broccoli requires a cold climate. Now, if that product has to be given to you all through the year, it has to. So there are artificial sheds where they grow, or temperature controlled centers they grow, but that is it also has its implications, right? So essentially, how do I grow in the season so the soil is not impacted? Then I freeze it and keep it, right? So that cold chain technology is still growing today. So we don't have all the boxes ticked when it comes to sustainable sourcing, but a lot of effort is going in, and there's a very conscious effort on every product which you are sourcing. It is not just on the product, but how it is prepared. So, like for example, we have most of the QSRs have a checklist on vendor, which is talking about the conditions in that place. So, what is the kind of labor they are employing? Do they make fair wages? So there is all these become, especially with this BRSR declaration, which has now become mandatory. Organizations are now thinking a lot more about not just the final product, how it has landed, but all the way back to the source. So we'll talk a bit more, but I think I'll pause here.
So good. On, say, electricity 4.0, before that I will say just talk about 2 or 3 things just to set the context. One is mega trends. I think all of you are aware about the mega trends, the trends which drive the economy. We talked about globalization, then we talked about reverse globalization. So now the mega trends which are driving the world, one of the mega trend is energy transition, right? So something which you know very well, that we are moving from fossil fuel to electricity, to renewables. Now that is one mega trend which is going on, the energy transition. Second mega trend which is going is on the sustainability side, right? And then here also we are on the crossing point, because on one side, just giving you a McKinsey report on the data side, we talked about AI, and we are all doing search. The energy consumed, if we take, when we were doing the Google search, if we take 1 unit of the energy consumed, when we talked about the text AI, then it is 10. When we talked about the photo AI, then it is 100. But when we talk about the video AI, which is coming very, very soon, then it is 10 to the power 6. So that's the kind of exponential curve which will be there in the energy consumption when it comes to the data center. I talked to you about the data center growth, but over and above that, what is foreseen is that this will be exponential in time to come. So this is where the dilemma comes in companies like Schneider, which is, say, last 2 years by World Economic Forum being adjudged as the world's most sustainable company, that on one hand, we are solving a problem which is consuming more energy, but on the other hand, we want and we tag ourselves as a sustainable company with our initiative. So that is the second mega trend. Now we talk about electricity 4.0. This is our answer to these kind of mega trends, or the conflicting side of the trends. In electricity 4.0, what we are talking about, of course, is it starts with your sourcing model, how you are sourcing. So we talked about all those green steels and green copper and all those things. Then use of artificial intelligence in not only in manufacturing, but on the application side. So Schneider, in last 3 or 4 years, they have acquired many software companies which are providing solutions to the transmission companies or the grids to make it more reliable and robust and more efficient, right? So this is, then third is that how do we create the offers which are more sustainable? So I think how many people, I do not know about scope 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to sustainability. And in our, it will be differing from say industry to industry. In our kind of industry, scope 3 is around 90% of the energy consumption. Scope 2 is just 1%. So scope 2 is the smallest portion. So our major thing is in the use case, upstream and downstream of the supply chain. So that is another portion what we are trying to address in electricity 4.0. So this is a domain which is solving 3 problems by using, say, 3 levers. One is the digitization, or more connected products, more data generation, and more efficient. Second is on the green, that means more sustainable products. And third is on the recurring services. So that means how do we provide the services which are for the customer and be engaged with them for a longer time, right? It's not like selling and forgetting. It's like engaging with them for a longer duration. So that's, I will say, it's a very, very vast topic, because each of these levers itself is pretty detailed. But yeah, just to summarize this.
Thank you very much. And thanks for asking this question, because this is really very informative and very topical too. Now, as we are heading towards the end of the sessions, I'll be asking more point blank questions so to help us to understand and
The difficult questions.
yeah. So more of the clubbing two questions together. Rapid fire will be. I don't have that much time, but the first question is definitely that: how do you foresee supply chain evolving in next decade? Because accordingly, we want your suggestion on that. What type of new skills and knowledge that we as academicians, as well as the budding managers, should focus on?
So I think we are going to see a very different landscape of supply chain as we get into next decade. And when I say next decade, I'm talking about from now of next 10 years. And there are multiple reasons for that. And I can speak of my industry, but I'm pretty sure that all of my fellow panelists are also going through similar challenges across the globe. And I think all of us, and I'm looking around, and I think that China is, of course, impacting all of us. Every one of us is working the China plus one strategy, China risk. And I can, like, if you go back in time, maybe I would say before COVID, 3 years back, I think most of the industries were pretty focused on China to make, because that's one geography that gives you scalability, that's one geography that gives you cost advantage, that's one geography that gives you everything that you want to run a profitable organization. But I think last 3 years have changed that completely. It has led people to believe of what they had believed all through these years, that don't put all your eggs in one basket. B, you really need to get into a place, specifically when you're looking to your supply chain, make it as diverse as possible. And that's where, if you look to last few years, even from India context, the kind of efforts that have gone in bringing more suppliers, more manufacturing to India is a result of what is happening around us. We have seen, like Piyush was talking about geopolitical thing. There are things happening almost on a daily basis where one industry or the other industry gets impacted because of that. And then this leads to a snowballing effect. I was not aware that the China has also impacted the food industry, but that's a learning for me. And that exactly tells you that how interconnected the industries the world has become today. So coming back to your question, Professor, I think we will start to see newer geographies propping up from the global supply chain perspective, because every industry, every organization is trying to build resiliency, and one way of building resiliency is to diversify your supply chain, diversify your suppliers in the way that if one is not available, you have an alternate. That's one thing. Second, your question is also about what academicians like you or what skills and what institute. But yeah. So for me, I think one most important piece, and we touched it briefly when we were talking about technologies. I would still, I don't know, maybe I'm very old school, but I would still feel that some fundamentals, I think even institutes are getting into this race of teaching newer, trendier, trending things to the students, But I think all those things are important. Having that basic application of skill set to understand, define the problem, solve those problems, will continue to be the need of the hour, even when we look to next 10 years. From the students' point of view, I think one thing, and I don't know how good IIM Shillong is doing it, but I think more such interactions where students can get exposed to what industry is doing. Maybe setting up some joint courses in association with industry will definitely help us as industry to get the right talent into our organization. Because one of the challenge, and we were talking briefly about it before this, one of the things, because when we go for campus hiring, we normally tend to see how the person has been performing academically, the CGPAs, how the person has been doing, which is not bad. I'm not saying that we should not be, but I think it is also the application piece of it. How does person applies that knowledge and skill set into the industry, into the business, into the function that we are hiring him? So I would say that would be my advice, and I don't know, there would be a lot more, but start to build that partnership like we are doing in supply chain with our suppliers. Start building that as relationship, partnership with the industry. Bring more industry people into your institutes. Let them interact with the students. I would encourage students to learn from them. And then if we can really define some specific, focused, concise courses that helps the student to solve the real-time problems, I think that should.
Thank you.
On this, so whatever say Rajiv, you have said over and above that, I think one portion, because this will also set a context for the HR side. What we really look for is the cultural part, the mindsets, and also you people are tagged, you are IIM, you are having so there is no doubt on those capability. What we really look for is that whether the person whom we are hiring, he will be a cultural fit or not. So that's the I will say thing what we really look in a complex organization like Schneider, which has a very clear vision that where we want to go. So whether it is cultural part, ability to collaborate, because we don't want people who are very individualistic. We want people who can work in a team and collaborate and produce results. So individualistic approach is a clear no. So behavioral tricks, the mindset, whether digital mindset and growth mindset. So that is on the softer side. For you people, there is no, I will not be commenting upon the competency. So it's just something to look upon. That's.
I'll do one better than your bullet point, right? So I know that you've been pressurized to. So it's the end of the day, the philosopher in me comes out, right? And I have to go play golf as well. Yeah, absolutely. Just tea. Then the philosopher won't come out, but anyway. Yeah, absolutely. So quick thing. So I would summarize as my elite panelists kind of talked about, right? So there's something called MECE. How many people know that? Mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. That mindset will solve a lot of issues in terms of, and that's exactly what both of them talked about. If you hold on to that paradigm in any aspect that you do, in any aspect, any element that you do, will have that. And segue into this, like I said, talked about the philosopher. I think I was talking to Priya about this. I've lived by this paradigm. It's really helped me in my career and my personal life. I know each one of you are brightest mind. It makes me proud to sit amongst you and look at how our country is going to be shaped by fantastic folks sitting in here, right? Each one of you are going to be a stalwart. Just remember this, whenever you're down, whenever you're caught up in something, just think about this. The legacy that you leave behind is the life that you actually lead. It's very profound, very deep. Just ponder over it when you're stuck with something that's not working out for you. The legacy that you leave behind is the life that you actually lead. Thank you.
Yeah, Prashant, just one more point. Thank you very much. No, I want to hear from him.
You said one bullet point.
I know. Thank you very much. But I want to ask you one thing, that these guys are crazy for certification nowadays.
Yeah.
So can you suggest them that what type of certifications probably you would be looking forward for, that would probably help them in getting some skills and all? Because that is what they would
So
like
it's
to
a
hear
very
from you.
broad topic in terms of the area of disruption that they're already here, right? So I wouldn't want to, but if you want to ask, trying to say, if you want to layer something over, and that's something that you predominantly look at the disruptive landscape that you want to get into, it depends upon more functional expertise, right? Now we are blessed with PGPX and MBAs and stuff like that. Now, me being a jack of all, right? I have actually put in a data science, machine learning, and AI course for myself. I'm not a technocrat, but when I manage a team of data scientists and ML engineers and AI engineers, and when they come to me, I look at them and try to say, what problem are we solving? Are you putting in an algorithm because it just looks sexy, or are you going to solve a business problem? Because I know exactly what the business problem is, and you need to come and tell me what's going to solve that. So having said that, directed back to you guys, each one of you, when I was super impressed when I talked about cash conversion cycles, I was super impressed when I talked about operating cycles. You already know that. Now, each one of you guys want to basically say that, okay, this is the area that I want to functionally expertise to take me to another level. Use this as a baseline or a trampoline to bring you to a fore of trying to say, could be data science, could be AI, could be ML, but look at what your core strength is, right? I can never be a technologist. I can never write a Python code, right? But I know exactly how to solve a problem through an algorithm that I know will solve a problem.
Oh,
So I would want to keep it very
wonderful,
general.
wonderful. Those thinking skills are something is very important.
Yeah.
That right now, Girish, you're playing two roles here, right? Panelist as well as alumnus also. Yeah, your advice.
No, I think three things. Just go back to what is actually the most happening industry today is quick commerce, right? Where supply chains, nobody has defined what supply chain they should be having, and it's evolving. So I think the major takeaway for us is that a lot of things are going to be keep changing. So the fundamentals don't change. So I to completely agree with Rajiv that you need to hold on to those fundamentals. Think whatever you're trying to do, but be flexible to change your thinking or evolve your thinking. So something like I mean, if we were to look, so for us at least, whenever you go into a managerial course and then you're going to go into a workshop, they do this capstone simulations, business simulations, because the more you work closer to how the industry can change, what the external factors can change, then you evolve your thinking. So be very strong in fundamentals, but then be prepared to change and adapt to it to a business problem, rather than going and saying, I know how to do in this much inventory, ke saath how much I can work. That might not be the business constraint. So
That's great. Thank you, Girish. And that's you're saying that have a very strong foundation. At the same time, be very flexible enough to explore more. Wonderful. So this brings us to then. I am afraid that we cannot take more questions here because a lot of inputs I'm getting from their side. Yeah, that's right. So thank you very much. Heartfelt thanks to our incredible panelists here, as well as engaging audience here. Thank you very much for input, and we really got a lot of inputs today to think on, ponder upon that. With this, thank you, and we'll meet further.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And we'll have a quick photo. No? I think.
Yes, sir, just 1 minute.
Before we, please then. Okay. So I was thinking that we have to please have a seat. They want to honor us with some more time here.
As we conclude this enlightening session, I'd like to thank our panelists for their thought-provoking contributions and Professor Rohit Joshi, sir, for moderating this dynamic discussion. The insights shared today underscore the importance of resilience, adaptability, and innovation in driving India's progress towards becoming a global leader. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you. No signal is still, waiting for
We now request Professor Rohit Joshi, sir, to please hand over the mementos which we have for our panelists.
come here and have to photograph with them. ये तो हम देंगे same use करते हैं
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shillong turf is little different.